Hey guys, okay, I definitely owe you guys a video, and I don't know, I just wish I could be back on my YouTube stuff. I just feel like I don't have much to talk about anymore, just because I feel like I'm kind of like in a transition stage of my content, because everything used to be SGU and Grenada, and now I'm kind of like in this awkward fourth year vet student stance, but I'm not actually at any specific vet school like what I feel like 90% of vet students are going to be going through. And I also feel like for what I envision doing in my career after I graduate in 6 months is even different from this. And so it's kind of like, do I just sit at a standstill? Do I start trying to get that audience that's interested in like vet stuff? And yeah, but here I am, little updates. I think I said in my last video, I passed my nav leave, whoop whoop. So like right now I'm just kind of like enjoying life. As a reminder for anyone who might be new to watching me, I'm a fourth year student at St. George's University, which is located in Grenada in the Caribbean. We spend our first 3 years on the island, and we do our final year back in the States at one of their partnered veterinary schools. And I chose to do Lincoln Memorial, which is untraditional, very new school. Very new in the sense that like in the last, like it's not even 10 years old. So they don't have a teaching hospital. So I am moving around for all of my rotations. I'm currently in Reno, Nevada. And as the title of this video says, I'm going to be sharing with you some tips, some tricks, and some wits as a fourth year student, having gotten through over half of my clinical year thus far. So in this video, I'm about to retwist my hair because as you can see, like it's super frizzy. And you might be wondering why I keep looking to the side. It's because I'm cheating the system, and I want my phone to keep recording, but in case someone calls and it messes up, like because the camera's turned around, I can't see it. So I have my laptop here, and it is screen mirroring. You guys, there is like lag to it, but that way if someone calls, it'll show here and it'll show that the video stopped recording, and I won't be sitting here talking like I'm done. So I'm about to retwist my hair. If you're interested, I use this to twist my hair. It's called Jam. I got my hair done in Grenada once, and this is what the girl used, and it was amazing. I truly believe that different things work on different people's hair, and I only use that when I twist it. Like I have different products for different styles, and I love this, love the way it smells. So yeah, so the first thing I want to talk to you about is housing, and that is because it is like on my mind right now, because I have been like going through hell and back trying to find housing for my next rotation. So typically I try to find housing at least 4 weeks out, because each of my rotations are 4 weeks long. So if I have to move, I want to have like be in the process of like securing housing for the next place as I start one. So like I said, I'm currently in Reno, Nevada. My next rotation is in a little south of LA. I hadn't found housing just because things are like so expensive right now with the housing market, and that's like everywhere. That's not just California, but as most people know, California has like notoriously been like one of the like more expensive states. Like the West Coast is notoriously more expensive, and it can be difficult to find housing. And the way to go used to be Airbnb. That used to be how people found housing. But now with the market, like Airbnb is jacked up. Like it's cheaper to get a hotel. But also, as most of you know, is I travel with a cat, and I can't leave Toulouse in a hotel room, you know, for 30 days. And, you know, I was in Tampa for 90 days. Like I was in Tampa for 3 months. So I can't do that. So, I, over the time, have found different things that work. I've found different sites that I had never known about, and I want to share them with you, because what is knowledge if you don't share it with people? So Airbnb is great. I think it's great if you're doing like a little weekend trip, but I'm doing this for vet students. I'm doing this for medical students, people that might be going on some type of internship. So I feel like currently, right now, as of summer 2022, Airbnb is just not your way to go. Like you're gonna get ripped off more unless like money is just not an issue for you. But I feel like for the average student, money is a concern. So some places that I have found useful, and my first one is furnishfinder.com. I actually found out about this website for my second set of rotations, which were the 3 that I did in Tampa, because my first ones were up in Kentucky. So I actually found out about Furnish Finder when I was looking for like somewhere that I could stay furnished, because again, when I was going to Tampa, I was going to be staying for 3 months. And so Furnish Finder is basically a website that's for traveling nurses, but it ends up being like a lot of like traveling professionals. And so like as people know, like in the human medical field, it's very common to be like a traveling nurse. I feel like traveling vets are like still like we're still very new in the industry, but I know there are positions where people travel as emergency vets. I have a knot in my hair, please. Un momento. So like I was saying, Furnish Finder is a site for travel nurses, and so for people who usually have 1 month to like year contracts, you can use this site. And there are some places that will say like they want like at least a 90-day minimum or at least a 6-month rental, and that's fine, but you can filter it from place to yourself, pets welcome. You can filter it to hotels, you can filter it to or like just stays. Like I think hotel is its own selection, and then you can put your budget and when you need to use. I've used Furnish Finder for most of my rotations, literally up until now, and it's been amazing. And I like it because usually they're not gonna have an issue with you because they only rent to like traveling professionals. So it's not like your, you know, crappy Airbnb where they're getting rented out every other weekend and people having parties and people who just don't care. Like again, because of the housing market so far, I have yet to have a place to myself just because it's so expensive. So I've always shared a room in someone's home, and so far like it's been pleasant. I haven't had an issue with it. I mean, like at first I kind of was like, oh, I wish I could find somewhere maybe the next time, but like that's become the norm. And unfortunately, whether on any of these sites that I'm about to talk about, like even renting a room in someone's house, like you're looking to be paying at least $1,000. $750 was the cheapest that I found when I was in Tampa. But other than that, it's been like $1,000. That's been pretty much the average. And again, sometimes there are a little bit cheaper options. I travel with a pet, which I'm going to talk about later in this video. But yeah, that kind of raises the prices and it limits your searching availabilities. The next place that I would talk about, I have everything written down, is a site called roomies.com, and it's not to be confused with Roomster. Roomies.com is similar to Furnish Finders, what I have found, and I haven't successfully booked this site, but it's a site that I've talked to people on and it seems like pretty legit. It's people renting out their homes, usually to like they're looking for a professional or a student. The problem with me is that usually I'm only looking for somewhere for a month, and usually they want someone that's going to stay a little bit longer, which is understandable because just turnover rate, having to clean the room and stuff. But again, you can type in your location, and I feel like you usually can find good deals, very nice people, usually people renting out a room, renting out their like a guest suite in the backyard. But I think roomies.com is a pretty cool site. I know I mentioned Roomster, and I'm not saying anything is bad. Maybe people have used that before and it does kind of seem legit to an extent, but the problem is that you have to sign up and pay to be able to use its services. Other than that, like you're like kind of doing like a half search, like their email is hidden, their phone number is hidden, and so like you might like in a lot sometimes like if there's no profile picture, like you literally like can't even see these people, and they're like, oh, sign up for an account. And the problem with that is that like if you're only using this one time, you know, it's not worth it to buy the account. And I think there are a lot of bots on that website. Like there's always like a lot of sketchy people, like it's always like men like only wanting a woman roommate. It's just weird, so I would stay away from Roomster. Another trick is if you are going to be doing an internship in a city that has a university, and not like a little community college, I'm talking about like a university that has like an actual like campus with housing on it, look and see if they have a housing Facebook page. You know, I never really used Facebook like that until I went to Grenada because everything down there runs on Facebook. But now I check my Facebook all the time because of it, and I've found that there are like so many pages, and many schools have housing and roommate finder pages where you can look and people will be subleasing a room. People will be like, especially like if you're doing like an internship or externship over the summer, people will like want to move out early and things like that. And so you definitely can just look on there, see if anyone's subleasing a room or something like that. That's actually how I found my first rotation, was on Facebook on a housing page, and it was for the University of Kentucky, and there was a lady on there that I found. So I think that's cool. Going into the realm of Facebook though, I do say be careful, and I would say be cautious with Facebook Marketplace. Even on these housing pages, like these housing pages are unofficial pages, usually run by a student or something like that. So they're not officially through the school. And so although like sometimes they'll have you answer membership questions as to why you're there and things like that, they're not always like, you know, there's fake people out there and they will scam. There are bots on there. So a word of caution, if you do that, like always, like never follow like external links or something. Always ask for pictures, ask for videos, ask if you can get a FaceTime call. And on Marketplace too, just be careful. It kind of falls into the realm of Craigslist. At least in the United States, I feel like there's just like so many like evil people out there that don't mean well, and they're just trying to like get you over. And I would just say, like, I've seen some weird things out there. Like, I've seen like men who only want woman roommates. I've seen you know, people where they're like asking for like a shared bedroom with a man. And come to find out, like what I've seen on these housing student pages, and I think this is just a reflection of the economy, is that it's becoming a norm for people to like rent out shared bedrooms, and it literally looks like a dorm room except it's an apartment and there's 2 beds in there. And if there's students, if you're like rooming with other like 20-year-olds, fine. But like if this is a grown man in his own house and he's like, oh yeah, I only want women, and you're gonna be, you know, it's just me and you in the house and blah blah blah, it's kind of weird. And not to say that every guy out there is bad, because there are some like legit nice guys out there. Like I've rented from a guy. The house I'm staying in right now is a guy who owns this place, and I'm staying with a man and a wife here. So I'm not saying all men are bad, but I'm just saying like be careful, especially ladies out there, which the most of the vet school is women. So I'm just saying be careful and like protect yourself, man or woman. Like look out for scams. The last thing I guess with housing is if you're doing an externship or an internship, especially if it's through a bigger company, especially if this is like your Banfield, your Thrive, your VCAs, your MVAs, things like that, Western on the West Coast, because I've interviewed with them and I've learned about them. But ask them if they do stipends, ask if they do housing accommodations. Every now and then, even if you're doing like a privately owned clinic, especially large animals, like sometimes they have a renovated barn that has an apartment, or sometimes like there's like a small apartment behind the clinic or something, or somebody has a room rented out. So if you're going somewhere, never be afraid to reach out to the site and ask them if they have something available. They might not, and that's okay. But just ask. And even if you're in your clinical year and this is just like one of your externships that you're doing, again, ask. But if this is somewhere like, you know, a very specific clinic or opportunity you wanted to do and maybe housing's not available, I really hope that these suggestions have like helped. I know a common question, and this might be for like a parent or some of my family members who watch my page, a lot of people ask like, so do schools not help you at all? Like, especially in my situation with Lincoln Memorial. And I tell them no, because it would be no different than if I were at my 4th year back home at UGA. You know, I would have my own apartment. UGA wouldn't be paying for my apartment. They wouldn't look for me an apartment. So that is kind of a downside to this experience, which again, that is on my list to talk about in this video. But yeah, there's so many housing opportunities out there, and Airbnb and hotels aren't the only thing. And long story short, pets make it more complicated, and don't wait until the last minute, because there will be less and less options. I am a planner. I started looking for the place that I'll be in August back at the end of May, so look ahead. So yeah, it's going to take me about an hour to do my hair. So once I make some more progress, I'll start talking to you about the next section, because I have something to share with you guys in this video. So we'll be back. Okay, I know the camera shifted because I didn't think that one through about like removing the camera, and I stopped the video. Okay, but the next thing I want to talk about is like money habits, because I get asked, I see other people get asked, like people ask it just in general to whoever is like, how do you pay for school? Like, how do you afford to live like in vet school? And like, I'm just gonna say one thing: loans. But no, seriously, like loans are like what most students, like almost everyone I know, like lives off of their student loans. Like, yes, there are those, again, handful of students that money is not an issue and their parents can afford to like give them spending monies or a credit card, or they're paying for their school, and you know, again, money is not an issue for them. We're not talking about that small 5% maybe of veterinary students. We're talking about the majority. And I hate when people say that they want to be a vet, but they're afraid to go into it for the money. And this video is not about vet salaries or things like that. Like this video is about like how to handle your finances in school. But I just want to tell anyone watching this, like, don't let money deter you from like what you're truly passionate about and your dreams. If you've always wanted to be a vet and that's what's gonna make you happy, like money will find passion. So just know that. But anyway, so these are my recommendations for money in school. So like, yes, I take out loans. I am fortunate enough that I never have to take out the maximum amount of loans. I know people, I know classmates, I have good friends that take out the maximum amount every year because their family can't help or support them the way mine does, or maybe they're already like kind of grown, they have kids, they're out of their parents' house, and that's okay. So people always want to know like how does money work, and like you will have enough to live. Like anytime if you're an American student and you take out loans, FAFSA gives you enough to cover the cost of tuition, and they also give you enough to live off of. That being said, how can you manage that money? So I have a few things here. First comes to groceries and food. Budget your money, make a grocery list and stick to that grocery list. Don't just blindly walk in the grocery store. Don't go grocery shopping while you're hungry. I know people say those things, and like, seriously, like, do it. I make a grocery list every time I go grocery shopping. Sometimes I pick up a few extra things. Sometimes there are things that I don't get on my grocery shopping because it wasn't on my list, especially things like Ziploc bags and aluminum foil. Like, I forget those all the time because sometimes I forget to write it on my list. And so with that being said, like, meal prep, I tell people that, like, and I hear people say like, oh, I don't like to cook, so I just eat out instead of buying groceries. But when you do the math, even if you have that mentality, like, you will end up spending more money eating out than if you were to just cook at home. Sometimes make something simple, make some hamburgers, make some spaghetti or some Alfredo. Like, do the simple. Like, I like to cook and I make everything like from scratch, and I like making like full recipes and complicated stuff, but you don't have to do that. You can make it simple. And especially like in school, the higher up in your studies you get, like the less free time you're gonna have, especially during clinical year. And if you meal prep even just 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day, it helps. And at least budget what you eat out. Like, if you're gonna eat out a lot, like, try to make a budget for yourself and like say like, I'm not gonna spend this much in a month. And there's like so many little budget sheets that you can find on Etsy if you want like fancy ones. Like, everyone uses iPads, or you can make your own, like, to be honest. The next thing that I want to talk about is gas, because gas is like so expensive. It is making me wish I had an electric car. It's making me wish I knew how to like bike for fun for long distances, because I know how to ride a bike, but I'm not about to bike like 6 miles to and from work. As you can see, I'm struggling with this one in the back of my head. Yeah, so gas prices are like so high. Like, here in Reno, I think up the street from my house, it's like $6.09, $6.19 for a gallon of regular. I'm lucky enough every now and then, depending on what part of the city I'm in, I can find some for like $5.80, or if I go to Sam's, I think it's like $5.40. And I remember in Tampa when gas was like 20 or 30 cents more than in Atlanta, and I used to be upset like I couldn't find something under $4.19. And it's so sad to say that I wish I could pay $4 for gas right now, because I still think $4 for gas is ridiculous per gallon. So you might be wondering like, okay, what do I do for gas? And so there is this app called Upside. If you're really good about like uploading receipts and remembering that this app is on your phone, and basically it gives you cent back for every gallon you buy. And so you'll open your app and it'll have a little map and it'll be like, oh, like this is your area, and it's usually in every major city or town. It won't be in like tiny towns in the middle of nowhere. And there'll be different gas stations, and you'll have to pay full price at the pump, and you have to have your card linked, because whatever you have to use debit card, it won't work for cash even if you get a receipt. And basically you use the card that is on file on the app, upload the receipt. They've gotten fancy now, and sometimes like as long as you use that card, you don't even have to upload the receipt. But basically within 24 hours they give you X amount of cent, usually like up to 10 cent back per gallon. And then it adds up, because I mean, if you're filling your tank up like once a week, you know, that adds up like in a month. And you know, even, you know, if you just take out six months, and they actually have food on there now. So I have a referral code that I'm going to like probably list like here or something, and I think it gives you like a bonus like 40 cent or something, and it gives me like a bonus 40 cent, and then when you sign up you get referrals. And I'm not sharing this because I'm trying to get you guys to sign up. I'm sharing this because it gives you money back. If you don't want to do that, if you know you're not going to remember an app or something like that, there's also gasbuddy.com, and that comes in app form. It's also just a website. You could do a quick search on your phone, and if you're ever somewhere and you're wondering, like, is a gas station nearby cheaper, you can look up gas stations in the area and it'll show their current gas prices, and you might be able to drive, like, 5 minutes down the road to a gas station that maybe has slightly cheaper gas, but it's not going to give you anything back. It's just like for your knowledge. Other things, people ask me like how to earn money while in vet school. Now that's a little bit hard because vet school, med school, dental school, law school, all those types of things, they are full-time jobs. Like, you're usually in class 8 to 5. Like, when are you gonna have time to work, like, outside of like being in school and then also needing to study and have a life and sleep? And not saying that it is impossible, because I know that, again, people are married, people have children. Sometimes people are putting themselves through schools and they have to. For me, going to school in Grenada, you couldn't work in Grenada, so most people didn't work. But if you are a stateside school, like, you can do tours for your school. You can often work in the library or work in the dining halls. I've heard that people do DoorDash and Grubhub, like, even on the weekends and things like that. We are in the age of like social media, so I mean, I tell people, start a TikTok, start a YouTube. Like, I wouldn't say depend on that. Like, I don't depend on my YouTube. I'm not making any money on my YouTube right now because I don't upload anything. But you never know. Like, every influencer out there started somewhere, started with 0 followers. And my thing is to just like be yourself. Like, don't try to be like anyone else. It doesn't have to be vet school related. It doesn't have to be career related. Like, it could just be about you. And that's where I always like walk the fine line, is like, do I want to get social media famous for my career, or do I want it for my life? Because there's so many other things outside of my career that I'm passionate about. Another thing that I tell people and that people tell me is invest. And I feel like that is a if you don't come from money, I feel like that is not like a thing that's just like taught and recommended, to invest money and like, get stock. And that's not going to bring you money now, but it's going to bring you money in the future. And so I will say, I have stock, I have crypto. Am I making bank? Do I have thousands of dollars in it? No, but you start somewhere. And sometimes, again, if you get extra money, like, you get like side hustles and stuff. Like, you never know. Other side hustles. Speaking of, you can teach, you can tutor, you can teach English to students overseas, especially to my people who like know other languages. Like, tutor people. I took Spanish lessons for literally $5 a session. All last year when I was online, because I found that I had like so much free time during the day. And there's a website called italki. There is a website called Preply, maybe it's like P-Reply, I don't know. But you can sign up on those websites and you can tutor kids from all over the world in English, or in any other language if you want, rather. And you set how much money you want to charge them, and you set your own schedule. You can also do tutoring for, again, if you're at like a normal school, like for undergrad students or for high school age kids in the area, you can nanny and babysit kids. You can do Rover. I think Rover is great, and I also did Rover, and I will say that was like a nice like $150 I looked forward to every week, between like the 2 or 3 long-term dogs that I watched while I was finishing up my basic sciences online. So those are things. My last thing that I know of is like transcription. There's a few transcription companies online, and that's just on your own time. You literally log on. I've done it before in undergrad. You log on, you see what's available, and you literally listen to these poorly recorded audio clips, and you type it. So like, when you're watching a video and it has subtitles, like, you're the one typing those out. And there's different companies out, because I hear that's more common now. And you might even do movies and videos and things like that. But yeah, those are things to help get some money out there. Yo, my phone just doesn't want me to be great. Like, it overheated and just stopped recording. So I've skipped quite a few in my hair because I wear it up more, and I only keep my twist in for about like 2 weeks. So I'm just redoing the ones that like you actually see, or that like feel bad. But anyways, the next thing I'm going to be talking about are the pros and cons of going to a traditional vet school. This video is messing with me. It keeps stopping and I don't know why. So, the newer vet schools, Lincoln Memorial, Long Island University, University of Arizona, and Texas Tech, they don't have teaching hospitals because they're new. So they're newer vet schools. They can't just up and build a huge teaching hospital and fund that, but also it's a different clinical approach. So instead of being in a teaching hospital with long hours and, you know, clients that are just there to spend, you know, every penny they have on their animals, you know, you get real world and like real experience for like what 90% of people are going to go into. Obviously, I don't want to say that teaching hospitals aren't realistic, because obviously they're running a business. People do bring their pets there. That's like people refer to universities, but for most people that are going to go into like standard practices or even specialty practices out in the real world, it's more realistic. I gotta make this in shorter clips because it keeps doing weird things. So I chose Lincoln Memorial because I don't know where I want to live, and so I felt that I could do this, go out into the real world and get experience of like different places, different cities, to really confirm where do I want to be. I also know I don't want to specialize, and I'm not saying that if you do want to specialize, you can't go to these schools, but for me, it wasn't like a losing situation to not be at a teaching hospital. I want to own my own business one day, and so I felt that it would personally benefit me more to be able to go into these different practices, take away like what works, what doesn't work, so that one day I can like, you know, make this into different things. And it also gives me a chance to work under several different types of doctors to like, you know, really push to see like what do I want to be when I get out of school, what kind of doctor, what things do I want to take away from these, you know, normal general practitioners like I'm going to be when I'm out of school. So there's pros and cons with that. One of the pros is, again, like what I just said, like you get to like go around to different places, you get to see, you know, how things work, different like viewpoints, different doctor styles, and obviously in a teaching hospital you would work under several different clinicians too. So I'm not saying that you don't get that, but again, you get like maybe how practices are run, how businesses are run, you get more of that. I think another pro is it is much better work-life balance. I do have to do an emergency specialty rotation for 4 weeks, but that is not my entire 4th year. And up until now, and it is July, I started clinicals in January, I have not had to go in on a single weekend. I did go in one Saturday at one clinic that the practice manager said come in on a Saturday just to see how Saturdays flow. But other than that, most of them are like, you're a student, come in Monday through Friday and like enjoy yourself. There's been some practices that have told me 4-day weeks, you know, or I shadow one doctor and I shadow their schedule. But Lincoln Memorial has a rule, as long as I'm hitting 35 hours a week, you know, 35 to 50, that's okay. And so I don't complain. I do think a large animal rotation I have coming up, I might have weekend calls, I might have, you know, middle of the night calls, and that's okay. But that, again, that's 4 weeks. That's not my entire week where I'm constantly on call or I'm working 14 and 16 hour shifts like I see so many of my peers doing. Which, again, I would still want to make a video about this. I'm just gathering my sources and thinking about how I want to do it. But I think that such a toxic and such an unrealistic way to work students, both in the veterinary and human medical world. But again, that's a story for another day. We're talking about pros and cons of this experience. Another pro is that, again, you get to travel, you get to move around. And I'm going to go into that in the cons as well. But I think that's a really cool opportunity that you can like move around and you can experience different cities and stuff like that. While you're a student, and kind of figure out like, is this where I want to live? Is this what I want to do? Like for me, I always said I wanted to live on the West Coast, and something I'm starting to find out is that my significant other, my entire family, all my friends are all on the East Coast. And so when I get off every day at 5-6 p.m., they're going to bed, they're winding down, and I hardly have time to talk to people. And as much as I love the West Coast, it is so expensive, it's so far away from home, and I'm like, okay, maybe living out here isn't it. Now, the cons to going to a school like this, again, the moving around, which some people are like, oh my gosh, that's so, you know, scary. Like, how are you moving around that much, like every 4 weeks? But I know Lincoln Memorial has hub cities. I've done my research, and like Texas Tech and the University of Arizona, most of their clinical affiliates are actually in their state, just because they're, you know, they're younger schools, so they haven't had as much time to make these affiliates. But Lincoln Memorial has affiliates all over the country. Most of their hub cities are on the East Coast, just because Lincoln Memorial is located in Tennessee. also on the East Coast. So I know they have hub cities in Kentucky and Tennessee. They have Tampa, Florida. They have Buffalo, New York. Texas is a hub state because I know they have over 50 clinics there. But I know Texas is huge. So you might be moving around Texas, but it's still in the state. So that's like the solution for someone who might not want to move around. And you can do up to 80% of your rotations, maybe even more, in one area, like one hub location. There are a few, like for us, that are required, like one's in Virginia, one's in Kentucky. Like you have to do those, but other than that, you could potentially not move around. And so that kind of fixes that con. But still, again, you're responsible for housing and, you know, gas and moving around to these locations. Another con, and I think I've touched on some of these in another video, is that like because you're moving from site to site so much, even if you're in the same city, you don't really get to like build friendships, because like just as you're getting comfortable and getting to know the staff, you move. So even if you're in the same city, like you're not in that same hospital. And so that's kind of been hard, because it's like no matter where I go, like I'll feel like I'm bonding with people. And like actually my current rotation was the first time I ever got invited outside of work somewhere, and that felt really nice. One of my rotations back in February, March, I went to lunch with the doctor a few times, and that was really nice too, because it's like you have like no friends, like it's like no socialization. Like usually in a teaching hospital, you have people on the rotation with you that you see every day, and you see the same clinician, so that kind of sucks. And then another thing is that you don't get the teaching hospital experience. Like, I mean, some people like that emergency rush all the time and being on call. And some people, you know, really appreciate, you know, being drilled in these pop quizzes by their clinicians. But you don't get that with this, because you're just in clinics. And I mean, yes, you do have, I've had some vets question me and like say like, what is this, a little bit more than others have. But if you don't have a vet that's like, well, I don't want to say willing to teach, but like knows how to teach, like, you know, you might just kind of be there. Luckily, like Lincoln Memorial like really emphasizes like the student is not just there to shadow or do like kennel work. So I haven't had situations where I'm just standing or like, you know, being put to do laundry, but like there have been times where I wish I was able to do a little more. So that's a thing. But even in teaching hospitals, I hear that like residents do things. So I don't know, but I feel like those are my personal opinions on this. But I think it's like a cool and unique experience. I do have to explain to some vets like it's new, it's a newer experience. Yes, I'm not at a teaching hospital, but yes, I'm still learning a lot. I passed my board, so I'm learning something. And I feel like it's the same thing of like the island school stigma. It's just times are changing and different people are making different rules of like what's important and what's not. And I feel like working someone to death for 18 hours isn't necessarily effective, as opposed to a student having like a real like 9 to 5 experience and a positive experience where they're learning a lot, but they also get a life so they can reset and recharge. I just gotta finish up a few at the top now. But okay, so the last few things that I want to say, just like a few of my words of advice, is like rest when you can. Like when you have off days, like really embrace those off days. Like don't be afraid to sleep in. Don't be afraid to like eat out, go get a comfort meal, like treat yourself. Like I've come to realize, like, you know, you only have these opportunities once. You're only a student once, so like when you have time, take a trip, enjoy some time with your friends, or just like do nothing at all. Like don't be afraid to do that. Another tip is work out, take care of your health, eat right, work out, whether it's yoga, whether it's running, whether it's biking, hiking, going to the gym, lifting weights. Like do something, and like never be afraid to start. But working out like helps out with your mental health so much, in so many ways. So I've like, ever since I started working out, like I tell everyone like work out. It's an amazing thing. Do things on your own. That is something I have had to learn to do while being on the road and being away from all my friends and everyone I know, is being comfortable doing things like 100% on my own, because you can't wait for people to do certain things. Like you'll miss so many opportunities. Like I took myself skydiving for my birthday. Well, I didn't take myself, I had it paid for by a good friend, but I went by myself. hiking, I do these long road trips, you know, and I take myself out to eat. And yes, it gets lonely at times. There's been so many times I cry, and so many times like I wish someone was here with me. But I've also, you know, learned a lot about myself. It gives me a lot of time to think about my future, think about things now. So never be afraid of being alone, and you have to be happy by yourself. You can't be happy with someone if you're not happy by yourself. Some other things, especially like if you're someone about to start vet school, you're new to vet school, you're just in the middle of like your basic sciences, like think before adopting all those like cute animals that are rescues that are up for adoption because your school is doing spays and neutering. Like don't accumulate 3 or 4 animals in vet school, because when you're in clinics and you need somebody to come let all your dogs out, if you're like me and you're at Lincoln Memorial, or especially an SU and raw student, and now you got to get that dog or cat off the island, those prices add up. Sometimes it can be expensive, and it is very difficult to find housing for someone that wants animals, especially cats. I have found that oftentimes when a place says it is pet friendly, it means for dogs. And I think so many people have fears of cats ruining their furniture, but I'm like, bruh, someone's dog is gonna run in here straight out the mud and jump on your furniture before my cat scratches it up. Granted, Toulouse doesn't scratch, thank God, but a lot of people don't like cats. So be mindful of that. Like, animals add up. They're just like children, and you're adopting a medical bill, you're adopting a liability, and you're adopting something that requires your time and attention, especially dogs. It's part of the reason why I myself haven't adopted a dog yet. On top of Toulouse being enough on the road, like, I don't have the time for a dog. I enjoy sometimes, like if I'm running late, I don't have to worry about letting Toulouse outside or, you know, feeding Tim, you know, because I know that his food just stays out and he has a litter box. Another thing is like, don't feel so pressured for NAVLE. People are going to make it seem that like you need to start studying the second you start clinicals. And unless you're at an untraditional school like SU or Ross and you are in a January start and you're trying to take the April NAVLE, like you have time. If you start clinicals in May and June and you don't take the NAVLE into November, you have time. I am in no way saying wait till the last minute. Like start studying, but don't feel bad if you're exhausted from clinics. Like you have to adjust to that. You have to adjust to that lifestyle and take the days off to study, you know, find out a study routine that works for you. I have a whole video on my recommendations for NAVLE. So yeah, don't let it consume you. Like make sure, I'm like just a big advocate for like work-life balance. As I finish this last twist, my last like word of advice or tips is like, don't feel pressured to like know your life to a T when you graduate or in school. And I feel like it's like a common misconception, like in your 4th year you have to know exactly what you want to do. Like you're gonna have so many job offers thrown at you because like there's such a demand for vets right now. Just the industry just needs it. There's a shortage and everywhere is gonna want you, and you have so much time to figure out where you want. And I've been told, like, be careful with your first internship, be careful with your first job, like really make sure this is where you want to go. So interview well, try to do working interviews, and just really get to know the people that you're going to be working with or for. Read your contracts carefully and really understand what you're signing and for how long and with who. And yeah, you know, just because you want to specialize, you don't have to specialize right when you graduate. You can always go back down the line. And like now, like again, being in all these different practices, I meet many people who didn't go right into a residency when they first started. Because if you're not familiar, for vets, it's optional for us to do residencies. We don't have to. We can practice perfectly without one, but you can specialize and become board certified in certain specialties. And so yeah, that is my advice. Like just live your life and do what makes you happy. Negotiate well and figure it out. Like clinical year is a great time to figure it out, but even if you don't have it all down to a T once you're in clinical year, like that's what your first jobs and internships and mentorships are for. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video of me twisting my hair because I hate doing my hair, but it didn't take quite as long since I skipped like a huge chunk in the middle. But now it is done. And now I'm about to go cook dinner. I was off today because it's the 4th. And yeah, so I'm about to go cook. I meal prepped some ribs, but I'm actually about to make this sandwich that I saw on TikTok. So keep up with me on social media. As always, I post on my Instagram more, but I also have a TikTok that I post like a little bit more. So it's like a great thing if you just want to keep up with my life outside of like vet things. Check out my TikTok. And until then, be safe, be happy. And yeah, bye.